Hello, Mark Red Larson here for the Dreamcatcher Podcast. Today I have Jaycie Cormac from Arizona, and Douglas, Arizona, I guess is where you're at. And we just recently met, and this will be an awesome podcast. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Jaycie. So what got you to Arizona? What got you to today?
Well, that's a long story. I'll try to condense that down for you. I was born and raised in Indiana, so
awesome.
I'm a Hoosier, and I spent the first 40 years in my hometown. I'd had a couple successful businesses there, and because I started my first company when I was just 19, and I just had my 52nd birthday, so it's been a long time ago. Yeah, a long time ago.
Cool.
I don't look, everybody always thinks I'm younger, but I'm not. I was married at the time, and we ended up, the recession of 2008 ended up causing us to lose the business that we had, because I had already sold my company, but the business that we had, we had 3 houses. We lost everything.
Oh, wow.
Even I let a Jeep go.
Oh, wow.
My gosh. We lost it all. And we literally lived in a renovated garage. It was my parents, but we lived in the renovated garage, used to be my dance studio, for 2 years. And then we kind of got on the wild-hearted path a little bit. And it kind of started at that point, but we moved to Colorado. And anyways, in the last 10 years or so, I have lived in 6 different states. 6 different states.
Wow. Quite a few.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So I just got on the journey.
Is there a state you like better?
Colorado is gorgeous, and I love to go back and visit.
Okay.
But I never would have guessed, but when I think of home, even though I spent the first 4 decades in Indiana, when I think of home, I think of Texas. I spent 4 years in Texas.
So why is that?
I lived in Fort Worth.
So quite a while.
And a little northern. Yeah. So I was there 4 years, and then in northern Texas. And I think part of it was because I think my wild-hearted journey really, really started then. So maybe that's why, because I'd only lived there a couple of months when the individual I was speaking of that I was married to move to Colorado and so forth, I lost a business with and all that. That was when I pulled the plug. We'd only been in Texas a couple months, and I was like, I'm done. It was a 16-year marriage, and I'm like, I'm over it. I couldn't take it anymore. That was it. And so there I was in a new state, in a new city, with a then 10-year-old son still at home. My other one was grown. And I had to really start fresh there. And I think that doing that there, and I started training in jiu-jitsu, and I just found a family there and made lifelong friends there. And of course, re-entered the dating world back then. And I think that was probably why it feels that way to me.
Okay. So I know we were just talking a little bit ago that you really started over. I mean, and for people that are facing that, where they have to start over, how was that? I mean, everybody thinks it's the end of the world. Is it really the end of the world when you have to start over? I mean, what's your take on that?
I think for me, it was probably a little bit easier because it was my choice. I had wanted out of that relationship for about 7 years, and because I'd been married before. And so I just didn't want to go through it again, and I didn't want to share my son. I know it sounds terrible, but I didn't want that where he wasn't with me all the time. And of course, he's only going to be 16 this spring, so there's still times that's the case. But I just I dealt with I'm a very strong, independent individual. I'm a very strong, powerful woman. However, I dealt with a lot of gaslighting and psychological abuse basically for years. And there was a particular incident that just was the catalyst, and I couldn't take it anymore. I was like, I'm done. So for me, yes, here I was in a brand new state. Like I said, I didn't know anybody. I had my 10-year-old boy, and we had a company together in which I had clients all over the world, and I didn't want to keep that company as a partner with him, right? So I'm like, now I'm going to, I got control of it for long enough to wrap it all up. but then I was going to dissolve it. And I'm like, now where's my income going to come from? So I had to take care of me and branch out and find me. And I've always loved martial arts. I've always been an athlete. So I found a place to train. And like I said, it just became family. And I found a career at that time that just put me out in the community, and I loved it. And it just changed for me, jiu-jitsu was very therapeutic. And so it became therapy and a spiritual practice. And I think that's probably the best support that I could have ever found for myself.
Awesome. That's good to hear. So I was looking, beforehand, how far did you go at jiu-jitsu? You're is that with the belts and stuff too then? Or is that? Yeah. I was just, I only trained for a couple of years because I moved further north in Texas, which meant I was an hour and a half away. And then plus we hit the pandemic, and so I was going to continue training up there, but it was different. And anyway, so I was just about a month, maybe 2 months shy of testing for my blue belt, which is the second rank, really. And so, you have quite a few more. So I miss it. And there's days that oh my gosh, because I trained 5 days a week. I was one of the heavy hitters training. I was with a few women. Really would miss it. Yeah, it was just life for a while, but it is what it is. And there's no place around me now. It is, and that's drive again away from it. So I'm not doing it. Oh, so that'd be tough. And that statement, it is what it is a very powerful statement. Yeah, it's very, very powerful. So, and talking about blue, I got to bring up, I love your background there. So why did you choose your background there?
Well, as you and I were speaking before the show, it's really about the colors. It is a mandala, which of course draws me, and I studied transpersonal psychology. That was my graduate education. So there's a lot there with meditative states and so forth, but we don't have to dive into that. But the colors are like the Caribbean blues in the ocean. And that they really are. Me. Yeah. I even got blue on today.
It's so beautiful. So, yeah, blue's, so do I. Blue's good. So blue's very good. So that is so awesome. So, but okay, we were also talking beforehand, starting over, that you changed all of your names a few years back. How was that? I've never heard of anybody doing that before. Sometimes last names, but not all three.
The last names get changed, and sometimes people will go and change their first name, right? And we can talk about famous people, like Prince did it. He did some weird stuff, but I love him. Okay. But and I know a few, and I do know a handful of people that have changed their first names. I don't know off the top of my head if I know anybody that just said changing at all. So 5 years ago, when I was going through the divorce, I actually went to a business retreat. At the time, I was living in Texas. And so I went on a business retreat in California. And when I flew there, I was my given name, right? And my married name at the time. And when I flew home, I can remember the moment I'm sitting on the plane, and we were on the tarmac, right? We're ready to take off. We're taxiing. And I realized I was leaving California as Jaycie Cormac. And so it still took a few months to get all the legalities done and to get it legally changed. But I started from that moment forward, it was Jaycie. And the funny thing is that when I decided to change it, I went to my friends and I said, time to name the baby. So it was actually
I love that.
And there was a guy I was dating a little bit, and I told him, I said, what am I going to name myself? And I had these ideas, and my initials, my given initials, when I was born was Jayce, my first and last name. So he said, why don't you go with just your initials? You don't have to change anything. But the Jayce clicked, and I went, Jayce, that's my name. That was it. Yeah. And then, of course, I was like, what's my middle name? So I'd always had a Francesca. It was always a name I freaking loved, and it doesn't really flow, but that's what I did. Jaycie Francesca Cormac. And my guy calls me Frankie, so it worked out.
That works. Oh, that works. And if you're going to change your name, you might have, I mean, everything the way you want it. I mean, middle name and everything. So that is so cool because you've done so many things that would terrify people, starting over, changing all your names. I think people live in fear a lot just because of all that stuff. And then you show them that it's not that big a deal. I mean, it's just, it's a process, but it is so cool. So, okay. And the other day we were talking, I mean, you have started over and moved. And the other day you told me you had everything, twice, I think, everything you owned in a Jeep. I mean, at one time. I mean, so how do you get to that point?
Well, when I left Indiana and I'd already been through this experience of losing pretty much everything. And when we went there as a family, when we went to Colorado, that move was interesting for me because though I'd always felt drawn to Colorado, and I actually have some cousins that live in Colorado, I had never been.
Okay.
And so we're packing our stuff and moving to Denver. I'd never been there. So I remember the moment driving there. And when from many, many miles away, of course, but the first look that I got at the Rocky Mountains, and I was just like, oh my God, it was just so amazing, right? So we had 3 U-Hauls at that point. This was the U-boxes, right? We took a lot of stuff. But we still had a lot. When we left Colorado, I was still married at the time, but we decided to take off and travel for a year. We had the company going, like I said, that I had clients everywhere. So we were able to have the flexibility. And my then husband left his position because he used to manage a bowling center. He left that and we took off. So we got down and everything fit into one vehicle. We either gave away or sold almost everything we owned. We took pictures of our pictures. There's only every once in a while that I regret that. Yeah. Once in a while I go,
yeah.
But most of the time I'm like, I got them.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? So when I was in Texas, I had another relationship. And when I left that relationship 2 years ago now, I ended up, I took my teenager and we went and stayed with my oldest son and his wife and said, I don't know, where does mom want to go now? So we switched states again for a while, but and enjoyed the time with him and his wife, and my boys rebonded because they're 11 years apart. So there was, it was amazing. And then I was like, where do I want to go?
That's awesome.
Oh yeah. It was a tough time in my life, but also one of the most beautiful times. So I said, where do I want to go? And I said, I miss the mountains. I want to go back out west, but I didn't know if I wanted to go to Colorado. And so I said, what? I had done kind of the Airbnb thing before when I had traveled previously. And so I just kind of jumped on Airbnb and started looking, and I came up on a ranch in New Mexico that was out in the middle of nowhere. Okay. And they had the bunkhouse renovated, and they had some cool aspects that, like, Geronimo had stayed there like the last time before he surrendered. He had his meal the night before there. Yeah, some cool stuff. Wow. So that's what I did. I rented it. We stayed there for 6 months. But to go there, I'm like, I don't need my stuff. So again, anything that I still had, I had left some stuff behind in that relationship anyways. But whatever I had, I said, it's got to fit in my Jeep. If it doesn't fit in my Jeep, I'm not taking it. And so that's what we did. I sold some stuff. I left stuff with my grown children and packed my teenager and myself in the Jeep and left my dog, which my dog actually is mine and my oldest son's really anyway. So she's just had time with mama, and she's had time now with him and his wife. So it's hard for me, but she's getting her time with both of her. Yeah.
I could see that.
So, yeah. So that's what we did. And we took off and headed for middle of nowhere, New Mexico. And it was amazing. We stayed there for 6 months.
Oh, wow. So you liked it really well then. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's only been an hour from where I am now.
But okay.
Yeah.
I mean, taking off, just doing that, wasn't that kind of freeing? I mean, I would think that you kind of I'm kind of free of all this stuff. And I would think that would be That'd be an awesome experience, I think. And I think I need to do that. It would take a long time for me to get all my stuff in the Jeep. But, I mean, a lot of it's just stuff. I mean, really. Yeah. I think that's one thing that especially in this country, we're so attached to our stuff a lot of times. And I think that would be really awesome to do. And but I mean, do you actually got rid of that? Do you still start accumulating stuff again, or did you just kind of stay where it's like, no, I don't need that anymore?
I did well for that 6 months because we were, in a same space, right? In that, and I was actually thinking about staying there longer because I have a couple of different units on the ranch, and I loved it. There's such a peaceful place there, so I thought about staying there longer, but I decided not to. And so, there were a few things. It took me 2 trips to get to where I am now because I did accumulate some things. So, when you're on camera and this, that, and the other, or just whatever, you kind of need more clothes and a handful of things. So I started accumulating those things.
That is true.
I had to go buy a Keurig again because I missed my coffee maker. So it takes a while.
I hear you on that one. Oh, yeah.
So,
you got to have your coffee. Yes. No, that is cool. So, okay, so I've got some other things. I mean, I have that you were director and founder of Author Talks About It. What is that exactly? Or what? I mean,
Authors
are you still
Talk
part of
About
that?
It. No, that was the company that I had co-owned with my one husband, and that was the one that I refused to maintain because of the stuff. I just wasn't gonna do that. I wasn't gonna maintain. I was gonna be a partner. I refused to buy him out, and I said, "Nope, we'll dissolve it." But it was a lot of fun. And what I did with it, we had an international book award contest, and so got to run that.
Oh, cool!
Yeah, and that was just amazing. Of course, I had a team underneath of me, so I had book critics because we would do critiques on the author's book as well. So they got a really good. I think it was 250 words at least critique. And so they got a lot of support. So we gave them advice on how can you fix this and what's really amazing about it. So we gave them really great things that they could use as well as good feedback if they needed to fix that.
I love that.
Yeah, it was great. And then I also I coached and so forth around that and how to market it and how to get it out there. And there was a lot of that. So it was a fun time. I really enjoyed it.
I bet it was.
It's time to move on. Yeah.
I can see why. Yeah, in life does. It kind of tells you the times when it is time to move on. So a little bit ago, you brought up transpersonal psychology. Mm-hmm. What is that exactly?
So
that's something that you...
Mm-hmm. Transpersonal psychology truly is beyond our physical human selves. It's beyond what we know on this planet.
Okay.
It touches on all kinds of traditions. So when I was in graduate school for that, we studied Buddhism. We studied Christianity, of course. We studied Hinduism. We studied, you name it. We studied all of them. Okay. And then, we meditated. We, really brought in our own spiritual practices. We studied dream work. And so this is not that frou-frou like,
wow.
Oh, it's a white bunny. If you dreamed of that, it means this. It's really, and dream work.
Okay, gotcha.
So, yeah, I love dream work, but it's really about finding out what's going on within yourself and how meditation, or in my case, when I did jiu-jitsu, it becomes a kind of an alternative state of consciousness. And it really gives you an opportunity. Okay. That's why I said it was therapy for me with jiu-jitsu, because especially when I was doing the training, the kickboxing part of it, because I did that as training. And so it's just, you're so focused and you can let everything else go. And it really offered a chance to heal. So there's just a lot there. We did sculpting, which I suck at, but there were a lot of cool things that it was just about finding out who we are and knowing that there's something that's way beyond what we are as human beings. Oh,
amen. I agree with that a lot. Yeah, I mean, some people look at you like you're crazy, but there definitely is, as you just said, and I know it myself too. So do you still I'm sure you probably still meditate? You still do that?
I actually do. I more often do shamanic journeys than meditation. It's just...
Oh, really?
Yeah, I like those better. So that's just me. I am part Cherokee. I don't look it too much. The coloring's not there.
Cool.
I have European coloring, but I've got the straight nose and the high cheekbones. But my great grandmother was full-blooded Cherokee. So that connects me to my spirit guides and a lot deeper and more. And I just prefer that more than actual meditation.
And I can see it. Okay, I have a friend that's kind of shamanic journeys. So she kind of took my wife Cheryl and I back to past lives. Is that what you kind of can do? Or she had us kind of go under almost kind of like a trance, kind of like? And or is that something that this is like? Or is that something? Okay, that is something.
Yeah, you can go that direction with it.
I thought that was...
Yeah, it's really interesting. I have had spontaneous past life memories when I was younger and I didn't even understand.
Oh, wow.
Like, where did that happen? Yeah, I've had some of those.
Sure.
And then I've had other things where I've done it with my experience for whatever reason. I don't have to be in that space, that meditative or that alternative state of consciousness to connect with and kind of be a medium. And I've done that for people, and I don't do it professionally usually, but I have done that, or to connect with my guides or to get information. And I used to have, and I did it this week, kind of think of it. But I'll have precognitive dreams where you dream stuff and you know about it and you're like, oh. And then I talked to my mom later that day and I'm like, oh, well, that was one of those off the wall things that I knew about. And I wondered why I dreamed that. And lo and behold, it had happened to her that day. And I'm like, oh, okay. That's why I dreamed it. I had no idea. So yeah, it's just interesting.
That's cool. and actually, I have, especially in the last couple of years, been having dreams similar to that. It's cool. I tell my wife that, and she's not to that point, but it's just like, it's so cool. I tell her, you said guides. I have guides too. And she's like, looks at me like I'm crazy. And it's like, I do. That's awesome. You're the first person that I've related with on this. This is so cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay, so, yeah, I'm pumped now. It is. So, okay, so get moving here on to the Wild-Hearted Life. So what brought you to starting that, the Wild-Hearted? I know you touched on it a little bit at the beginning of the podcast, but what got that really into fruition?
You know, most people probably could say that this has happened to them. But when you're working, you're successful at what you're doing, maybe you're a leader, maybe you're an entrepreneur, just some sort, whatever your career is. And then you hit that moment and you go, wait, is this all there is? There's got to be more to life than this. Yep. And the first time that happened to me, I was actually still in my middle 20s. I had my dance studio. I was very successful at it. And I loved my students. I mean, I had a packed house all the time. It was just very, very busy and very successful. And like I said, I was young. But I remember, and I call it my mirror moment, because I was in the studio working on choreography or whatnot for that night. And I stopped dead in my tracks and looked in the mirror. Of course, it's a dance studio. You're always looking in the mirror. And I was like, true. Right. Yeah, you had to be comfortable looking at yourself all the time. And I said, wait, I'm supposed to be doing something bigger. Mind you, at 25 or whatever I didn't realize I was making a tremendous impact on my young girls and the handful of boys that I had. Because years later, I've had them come back and tell me what a difference it made. And they've worked in jobs all over the world, done this, done that. My son even said that he got through basic training in the Air Force because of what I taught him about perseverance and staying on stage. The show kind of must go on kind of deal. And yes. Right. And he said that it got him through. And I'm like, and he was in basic training. Well, he didn't want to me talk about him, but he faced the pandemic during basic training. So it was a tough time to be in basic training because, it was just scary.
Oh, yes. I bet.
So, anyway,
it really was.
I had to take that feeling though and shove it down because I was like, well, I have classes tonight. Okay. And what am I supposed to do? I have a mortgage because I built my studio from the beginning and I had bills to pay. And I'm like, well, I can't just walk away. And I have these students. So honestly, I really didn't feel like I really embraced it for 2+ decades later. And that was when I did all the stuff we talked about in Texas.
Okay.
Changed my life completely and changed my name and all that. That's when I really started to move more towards feeling that I was living the life I wanted and being more free.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I've told my stories, when I've told my stories to people that we've been talking about, and they look at me and go, wow. One of my friends now that I see because of what I do, because I do a couple of things in the world, because I love leading and getting ready to set off these retreats and the workshops and stuff with Wild Hearted Life. But I also love being in the public so much that I still go and work with the public. So one of my friends, he said to me one day, he said, Jayce, he goes, you've done a lot. You've lived. And I'm like, I have. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. It's just been my life. And that really clicked. And I said, And I said, I have got to start to show other people how to do this, especially when a number of my friends said, would you do a retreat? I want to go. And so I started to, and that was where the idea fully came into fruition in Hearted Life.
So cool. No, and that's because most people don't ever get to that point, and that's just, and the ripple that you had on your kids when you were doing that. I'm always talking about ripple, which a lot of times you don't know the impact you have on somebody else too. Mm-hmm. So that is so awesome. So so where do you see Wild Hearted Life going in the future? Well, I know I've mentioned a while ago I've done coaching, and really when I was teaching dance all those years ago, actually I was coaching because I was coaching so much more than just to how to dance. It was, like I said, just tremendous things that I just did and I didn't. But every time after my divorce and I dissolved the one company, I would kind of start to, I want to start a new company. And I would get kind of move in that direction. And then I would just put the brakes on because it didn't feel right. And then I had those moments of what the hell's wrong with me? Right. I know that feeling. Because, why am I doing this job over here that too. Right? And I finally figured out it's just because I love to live from the wild-hearted space. I love my freedom, even though I want to help people, right? And make a difference. So that was where I said, okay, with Wild Hearted Life, I'm not going to coach. I don't want to do that. So Wild Hearted Life is completely focused on, I've got my podcast and then I'm out speaking and I'm going to move that direction because I've been on stage my whole life and I've spoken in front of lots and lots and lots of people. So, doing paid speaking gigs, that's a part of it. And then doing the workshops, which are maybe like a day or a weekend thing, and then the retreats. And that's what it's really going to be. And those retreats are going to be so freaking cool because not only are they going to take some deep dive through a process, but we're also going to add in different things. Like I live in a cool place here in Arizona right now. So I'm not too far from Tombstone, Arizona. So I'm like an hour from Tombstone. So I'm like, that would be cool. We could do a retreat nearby and then maybe we go to Tombstone and we go to the gunfight, that they do every day. The gunslingers are out. Whatever it is, or we might go on a paranormal, a ghost tour, or maybe I'll bring in, a martial artist and we'll have a self-defense training. There's so many cool things that can happen. Yeah. A lot of directions you can go there. Yeah. That is so awesome. I love that. I just love that. That's so good. Okay. So, we're talking about all this and that is so cool. So is there a dream that you still have that's way out there that you still want to do? So, I got cold chills. I remember when the big changes happened in Texas for me, so 5-ish years ago, I remember being in a coaching program I was in, and of course that's often asked. Anybody that's been in a coaching or any kind of personal development world, they know that question so often gets asked of us,
what was your dream? What did you want to be when you were little? And I was like, well, from the time I was 7 years
Right.
old, I wanted to have a dance studio. And then I'm like, well, I've done that. Now,
Oh, wow.
So
Right.
what? The only other big thing that I feel drawn to is to actually own a retreat center and have the retreat center. Well, I don't know how big I want. I've kind of had bigger dreams, like really big, but then I've thought of even just a smaller, like it's, we just stayed at a house in January down in Mexico, and it was an Airbnb, but it had, I think, I think it had maybe 6 units. And I'm like, well, it was set up in a way, it would have been a really cool place to actually have as a retreat center. You could live on site, and then you have
very much
right there. Yeah. So it was just cool. So I think things like that, where they would actually come to me sometimes for retreats. And if I wasn't running a retreat, I can still we can put those out as Airbnbs. We can have other people come there and do the retreats.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably that's the bigger dream. And with that, we really want to live on the beach. We want it to be a beach house because we're not that far we're like 5 hours from the ocean, but yeah, that's what so.
And I can relate with that. I can relate with a lot what you say there. And I also am very happy when I'm on the beach at palm trees. I pretty much, I love the beach. I tell my wife I'm a frustrated beach bum. So I definitely do on that. So, okay, this is so cool. I love this. So if somebody wants to do with what you're doing, how do they get a hold of you?
wildheartedlife.com. And of course, they can always email me, which is Jaycie, Jaycie, at wildheartedlife.com. Those are the easiest. I mean, if you go to Instagram or TikTok or LinkedIn, it's still Wild Hearted Life. So it's not hard to find me because those are
it is there. Okay. That's very good. So I got to check those out too. That's so awesome. So well, Jaycie, thanks for joining us today. Is there anything else you want to add, or any questions for me, or Well, I want to tell you, Mark, that I was really excited to be here with you today and share with you because I know that you have we resonate. You know, you have this concept. This idea. Do, yes.
Yeah. And I love that. And I think, as you said earlier, so many people are afraid. And of course, I just did a podcast recently on being scared versus being afraid, because they're two different things. But when we're afraid, we may feel some apprehension, but we can prepare ourselves to go do what we want to do. And we can still do it even though we feel afraid. Because I remember a partner of mine a few years back there in Texas, and he had said to me, he's like, Jaycie, you're not afraid of anything. He's like, you're one of the bravest people I know. And I'm like, I'm scared. What? I'm afraid of everything. And he's like, no, you're not. And I'm like, yes, I am. But being scared gets you in this space of you can't. It's kind of the deer in the headlights. You can't move forward.
It is, yes.
But when we're just, we can be afraid of it, but we get prepared.
Exactly. I like that. That's a good explanation. I really like that. So, and most people are scared. You know, the people I talk to, they think it's, they don't think it's for them, you know, and I think that's a deflection because they don't really want to, because they're afraid or scared, I should say. And it's just like, you know, I'm just somebody that you just take action. One thing, you make the decision, you're going to, and I tell everybody that people, everything that you need after you declare it to the universe, they come to your aid. You know, it's just like, just take that first step. It will be so awesome. And, but most people still don't do it. You know, they just kind of get into their daily routine, and another week goes by, another year goes by. And there's some days, and it's just like, don't live that way. That's not a life. So,
and I
love that you're working on that.
Yeah. And I say too, that dreamers are dreamers. Wild-hearted dreamers, rebels that take action.
Yeah, awesome. That is cool. That is so true. So, because dreamers are dreamers. They don't they just dream about it, but that's all they get done. So awesome. So on that note, I'm going to I think we'll end this podcast, and thank you for joining me, Jaycie. And maybe down the line, would you be interested in doing a follow up or doing another podcast?
Absolutely.
Okay, very, very, very cool. So, but that's a plan. I will definitely do that. That is so cool.
Fantastic.
And see how Wild Hearted is progressing and everything, and all we've talked about today. So, but again, thank you for joining us today, and look forward to the next podcast with you. And on that, we'll end it. And thank you, and have a great day. And talk soon.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.